Welcome to our Urban Legends podcast. I'm Dr. Gloria McDaniel Hall. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent, all within urban schools in Chicago and around the country. Our Urban Legends podcast is a forum for sharing ideas, strategizing together, and supporting each other as we dismantle the deficit narratives sometimes associated with urban education and discuss where and how amazing work is being done.
Welcome, everyone, to an episode of Urban Legends that I've been waiting to do with my friend Gerald Stewart, who I've worked with for, over 10 years. We've known each other, I think. We did work in some turnaround schools. And the thing that I remember about Gerald, before I even get him to answer the questions about his journey and all the other questions that we have, is that I don't know what his official title was, but I saw him as like the culture setter. But it wasn't culture setter in a mean way. He was doing his job with a number of schools that he was responsible for, with such care for the teachers and for the kids and for the staff. He has like a spirituality about him and patience, but also high expectations and love. Like, he did his job with love. And not everybody can do that. He mixed the things that he knew that we needed to accomplish in order to have schools that were productive for the students that we were serving, with high expectations and love. That's what he did. So welcome, Gerald Stewart.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria Hall, urban legend herself. Thank you.
So before we, usually I ask the guests to tell me a bit about their journey in education. I'm not sure you were ever a teacher. I don't even know what your background is. So I'm excited to hear about your journey in education, and how did you end up being this amazing Gerald Stewart that you are today?
Wow. Well, again, thank you for this opportunity. I've been wanting to do something like this, and thank you for the opportunity to do such. You're right. I was never a teacher.
Wow.
I've never taught in an educational classroom setting, but I am a Bible teacher, a pastor, and so forth. But my journey in education began from a previous career. I was in the parole section, dealing with correctional officers and correctional folks. And when people got out of the correction center, they would have to come see me to get GEDs, get back in society, workforce environment, and so forth. And they would have to come see me. But it began to get very disheartening when I saw young people who would be coming to me, and this was the 5th time that they had been locked up for car theft. But they were 22 years old. And it began to dawn on me, like, how can I reach students, kids, teenagers before they get on the other side of this counter? And the only thing that came to mind was school. I was already a youth minister, but I talked to somebody that was working in a school. I said, I want to help kids. I just want to help kids. And I said, I want to be like a counselor or a social worker. That's what I want to do in a school environment. I saw them one Friday. They came back the next Friday. They said, listen, there's no counselor, social workers positions open, but you do have some background working with youth. And so how about this? How about a security officer? And I said, what? I said, counselor or
Did you come back with security officer?
You security? But no, you got me, because I knew security didn't make any money. I needed some money. I was trying to make some money. But the man said this. He got me, Gloria. He said, but you told me you wanted to help kids. I fell back. I said, you know what? What do I need to do? And I took a leap of faith and left that career in corrections and became a security officer at Walter Payton High School. Wow. It wasn't even, they were still putting bricks up. The walls weren't even built, but I was a front door security officer. And I stayed at Walter Payton I was with the founding class and stayed there for 8 years, founding staff, became a security supervisor. But I always was working with youth, and the youth used to say, you just much more than a security officer. You really treat us well. You treat everybody well, the teachers well. But then something happened in this educational journey where someone came to me again. Watch this. I'm gonna put this in here. Every position I ever had never existed before I had it.
Wow.
Walter Payton didn't exist until I sat there.
Wow.
I went to another school, the Noble Network of Charter Schools. They were building a new school, Gary Coleman College Prep. It never existed. The position didn't exist till I got there. I was a founding member there, Dean of Discipline.
Wow.
Stayed there for 2 years. And someone came to visit me one day, and they said, who is this guy in a bow tie that can go in a room and raise his hand, and 214-year-olds raise their hand and look at him, and he's not screaming, he's not hollering. Who is this guy? And a group called Academy for Urban School Leadership came to visit me one day. And they stayed for about 5 days, 4 principals, and the person that went on to be my supervisor, Dr. Jarvis Sanford, he went on and they stayed with me 5 days, the whole week.
Wow.
Now, in education, you can kind of fake somebody out for 1 or 2 days. Yeah, okay, be quiet in that room, stay out of that hallway.
Not over 5 days.
Right. 5 days later, the 4 principals said, listen, this culture and climate, this dealing with youth and thing, you got this down. People love you, but you're not a mean guy. How do you do that? And I told them it was about building respect and relationships with students and staff. And I stayed there for 11 years, and that's where we met, and continued after that, working in North Lawndale College Prep as assistant principal, director of high school culture, but then ultimately starting my own consulting firm that we'll talk about later, Gerald Stewart Consulting. But that's somewhat of the journey. That's the journey from small beginnings to working with you in over 32 schools and principals.
But you know what, Gerald, and this is a question that we didn't prepare for. I think there's something about the background of certain people that has a certain level of compassion for the students that we serve, that students feel.
Absolutely.
I can go, for me, I go into a building and people go, how do you do that? Like, just me and kids, like we got a connection. Even the kids that are the ones that are the ones will listen when I get them settled enough to speak with me. And there was something that you could do, but you did it on a wide spectrum. Like all the kids respected you, but it was something about, like, I don't know if there's something in your background, in your own personal background as a child, that allows you to make those kinds of connections with people. Because you made the connections with, we had new teachers who were, everybody who's a new teacher struggles with classroom management. And new teachers were struggling. We got buildings filled with new teachers. And so this is a different kind of calling to be able to go to a building like that, speak to teachers, speak to students. And within a month, the building looks different than it did before you got there. What is it about your background, like as a child or as a teenager or as a young adult, that made you so patient with the behaviors that we sometimes encounter in our schools?
Well, a few things. Number one, my background, I'm an only child. I grew up in a house with 2 parents all by myself. So whenever friends would come around, I had to learn how to make friends. I just had to learn whatever, cracking a joke, whatever, just playing sports. I learned how to make friends. It's a gift. And I was always transparent. You know this very well. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes.
And I always said this to new teachers and new support personnel. Your presence, how you carry yourself, needs to speak without you saying anything. Meaning you should be able to come into a room and your presence can be so effective and infectious that it says something to the whole room where people want to stop and turn like, Hold it, there go Mr. Stewart. Hold it, there go
Yes.
Dr. Hall. What?
Yeah.
Didn't say a word, but your presence.
Hmm.
And that comes through respect. That comes through treating people the right way. That comes through just being what we already heard, a no-nonsense nurturer. People know if you really care about them for real.
Yeah, they do.
What comes from the heart reaches the heart. Even if it's a good morning, how does that come off? Did you smile when you say it?
Mm.
Did
Did you
just
make
say
eye contact when you said it?
eye contact, anything? Oh, just
Yeah.
hello. And you over here doing something else.
Right.
All of those little things go into the big picture of building relationships, trusted relationships that can last forever. But you have to understand, I always say this, in education, I always say this. Students have a fine-tuned crap detector. They know who for real.
They do.
They know who to play with. They know who not to play with. They know who we can run over. They know who don't like them. They know, it's just something in them, intrinsic about just their life. They know, oh, you're not for real. You don't really care about us.
Right.
And so my history, being an only child, just learning how to build relationships has brought me into a place. And what we're also going to talk about, it's part of who I am. I'm an extrovert. I love people.
Oh yeah, I can I can attest to that.
I go talk to somebody in the funeral home. It would make me a difference. It would make me.
At the funeral home.
Here's what you do. Everybody's sleeping here. What you doing? What's going on? You know. So that's why I take that.
Okay. So I wanted to discuss a particular school that we both worked at.
Yes.
It was Dewey Elementary School. It's near Inglewood or in Inglewood in Chicago, and everybody knows about Inglewood in Chicago. The crazy part is that Dewey was the first place that I ever worked as a substitute or a cadre and got my own classroom. And that was 40 years ago.
Wow.
And Dewey, when we worked there together, had not only, I don't think they had gotten better than they had been 40 years ago. I think they had gotten worse than they had been 40 years ago. Everything that is unjust about the way we fund schools in our state had impacted Dewey. The neighborhood had been impacted. The parents had been impacted. I don't blame the people who live in that neighborhood for the way the school was operating. I blame the system, but we got to deal with that on another podcast episode. But when we had a principal there, CJ Rogers, and I know that you did a lot of work with him on the onset. And if there was a school that I could ever point to as a school that was actually a real turnaround, it was a turnaround in all the data within a year, was trending upwards. Dewey was the worst school in the state of Illinois.
That's right.
And moved up to be an amazing place. You walk in, every classroom, teachers were teaching and students were learning. Students were engaged in after school internships with Google and there were all kinds of chess club and every kind of club, and teachers were doing stuff for free. With clubs, with kids. What do you think needs to happen in a school that is truly a situation where we turn it around? I don't like the term, but it's the term that everybody kind of recognizes, where we turn it from being a place where learning isn't happening and love isn't happening to a place where it is. Because I don't think you could just be a test prep factory. You can't be that.
No.
Yeah.
But something that when we worked together, we always knew in those schools like that, where there was chaos, there could be no learning. Now, if you were the worst school, and Dewey was, in the state of Illinois, chaos was embedded in every corner of Dewey.
Yes.
And so my focus as educational support manager, that was my job, to go in and make sure the culture and climate was conducive for learning in the classroom. And we understand the culture and climate doesn't just affect the classroom, but that's the hallways, the cafeteria, the bathrooms, the playground. And so one of the key ingredients, and you mentioned the person, C.J. Rogers, it takes a visionary instructional leader to go in there with a vision. But I say this, here it is. If you're taking notes, you want to catch this. A visionary leader has to have that vision, but then they have to be able to put a voice to that vision. And once CJ put a voice to his vision, then you have to be visible to make sure what you said is happening in the space. But then the last V is this versatility. You never know what is going to happen in a school that's like that, in a community that's like that, that's been forgotten, that's been left behind like that. You never know. So versatility, so vision, voice, visibility, and versatility go into a person like that, the leader.
He was, one day we were there were two incidents that I remember. One day we were there and we were at like a leadership meeting / retreat, and they were asking him about his vision and his goals. And like Dewey's attendance was like in the low 80s, like kids were not coming to school. It might have been in the 70s percentage. And he said, oh yeah, it's going to be 96. And the people we were meeting with were like, yeah, you might want to lower your expectations around that. It's not going to be 96. And I sent him a text message, like we were sneak texting. I was like, do not lower your expectations. Do not lower your expectations. And so they didn't make the 96, but they made 95.
Look at that.
They made 95 because you know what? When kids weren't at school, if it was about their uniforms weren't clean, they had extra uniforms. He had found a way to do it. He had his ESP team going out to homes, bringing kids, talking to parents. What's keeping you from being here? Let's help you figure that out. If it was about transportation, they figured that out. Like they figured out what was keeping kids. But then it was more than that, because once kids started progressing and they were really learning because they were in their seats and they were learning and the instruction was happy. It was a happy school. He was rapping on the, remember he used to do the daily. It became a happy school. It went from being a sad place where everybody looked depressed and mean to a happy school within a year. Within
1 year. But now watch this. The next key after that, you got to find the right leader. He was the right leader for that time and place. He was born for such a time as that. But watch this. He then had to go and pick single-handedly with his staff, his APs and so forth, and teachers, different people in that building, different teachers, different security, different paraprofessionals, different maintenance. You got to pick, everybody has to be on this team. But you have to have the same ideology that all students can learn, all kids can win, and I'm gonna be a part of helping that. If you don't have that whole team, I can have the best leader in the world, but I can't do it all by myself.
Can't do it. And I remember, I can't remember the lady who was his AP, who also like became an amazing like superstar, but they would hardly ever be in the office. They were in classrooms, they were in hallways, they were greeting kids. It was an amazing school. It was an amazing school. There's so many. I'd like to do a case study on Dewey because
because when you look at something like that, on the outside looking in, people will say that's impossible because you're used to the same thing that you've been getting for generations. That was a generational failure. It was parents that were bringing students to the school that went to the school that still were not on grade level when they went to the school. Now I'm bringing my daughter, I'm bringing my granddaughter, and they're not on level, and I wasn't on level. That's a generational failure.
That's generational. And Jeffrey Canada, the guy who started the Harlem Children's Zone in New York, has that. He said, a bad school is not like a good bottle of wine where it ages and gets better. It's like, no.
Not at all.
No, a bad school is not like that. He talked about the high school that he went to and said 50 years later, it's still what it was when he was there. But
you see that? It's listen, look, this, I'm glad you mentioned that. I gotta say this, because here's the thing. It is never the students.
It is never the scholars.
it is always the adults in front of the scholars. Dewey, the case study. Dewey didn't get a chance to pick students from Hyde Park and Woodlawn. They had the same students that had been going to Dewey for 7, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And in 1 year, different adults helped change the whole mentality and ideology of the community, not just the school.
Oh, yeah, they did.
So it is never the students, but it's always the adults.
Always the adults. Okay, so tell us about Gerald Stewart Consulting before we end up. Like, tell us about your business, what kinds of supports that you provide for schools, some of the success stories you've had so far.
Yes. So this has been a long time coming, and procrastination is one of the biggest things toward failure. And so suddenly I just said, I have been doing this forever, and I'm always have a tender spot for people outside of the classroom, right? Because they make a big part of this turnaround, this change. And although I've never been a teacher, I can walk into a classroom and set students in the right position and the right behavior mindset so that they can be productive. But that's that classroom management side. So I can go into a place and do some real-time coaching with teachers around respect and relationships, but also with support staff about collaboration. And what I like to say is this: being poised for success. Are you going to be professional? Are you going to show ownership of your environment? Do you have integrity? Is there skillfulness? Is there empowerment? Is there dedication to your craft? If you can stay poised in education, you can be successful. And so right now, I'm stretching out into Milwaukee. I'm stretching out to Indianapolis. I'm stretching out to even places here in Chicago, even Waukegan, and working with schools and districts to go in and train adults on how to build these lasting relationships, but then also, how does that change academic outcomes for students?
Love it.
Because if adults can get better at what they do, now students can get better at what they do. And that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching folks how to stay poised for success. And it deals with, I'll come and do a one-day walkthrough of a school, as I did when we worked, and just stay there for about 5 hours and begin to see holes in the culture and climate, holes in the interaction and collaboration among staff. And when you fill those holes up with what you said, love, joy, peace, professionalism, now the building starts feeling different.
Yeah,
you ever notice, Gloria, you can walk into a building and feel something good?
Immediately. I go into a building sometimes and the people who are the security and the people in the office, oh, just have a seat. We'll get it right away. Just sign in here. Or you go into a building, like just grunting.
Exactly.
And like,
Who you here to see?
Yes.
Good morning, maybe. Hello. But as soon as you walk in, that's what culture is. It's the interaction in the building, how a building looks and feels. The climate is the interaction that deals with students and staff.
Yes.
That's the culture and climate. And it's evident, either good or bad. Yes. And so Gerald Stewart Consulting on Facebook, on Instagram, you can reach me. We can talk and we can help our students get to where they need to be. Because I believe this with all my heart. Every family, every parent, every guardian, every grandmother, every adult that's for real in education wants to see students be successful.
Oh, yeah, they do.
That.
Yes. It's just sometimes people don't have the tools or don't even see sometimes how they're showing up.
That's right.
I know people who don't like, do you know what that looks like when you said that to that child? Or when you said that to that teacher in the way that you did? Or sometimes I see adults reprimanding or leaders reprimanding teachers, but doing it like in front of other teachers.
Come on.
Would that be something you would want your boss to do to you in front of other leaders?
Exactly.
No, like we got to do this work with compassion. And people everybody's at a different like learning space. A new teacher is different than a teacher who's been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
You know, like we got to be patient a little bit. I know sometimes it's hard to be patient because we got these things that we've been mandated to accomplish in a year.
Right.
Like I get it, but then you got to do it with love. You cannot do it
Right.
make people feel bad.
You're right. That never works.
No,
Because when you make me feel bad, I go make the student feel bad.
right.
You know, you
Right.
holler at me, guess who I'm gonna go holler at?
Right. There's a book like that you should get it, Gerald. If you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the kids. That's anyway. Okay. Okay. So lastly, I always end with a quote. And when we were prepping for our time together, you told me about a Steve Harvey quote. I went and looked it up. So here's the quote, and I want you to reflect on this and tell me how it applies to your life. Not ignore your gift. Your gift is the thing you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. I have an idea of some of the things that are your gifts. We talked about them at the beginning. What is that quote like? How does it resonate? What does it say?
When I mean, I could talk forever about this, but I never believe you find everybody has this gift. Everybody has it. Everybody have it. And it's on the inside of you. You have to discover what it is. Or almost it discovers you. There's a marriage. It's something like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so, but you can flip it. When the teacher is ready, the student will appear. Your gift will open doors for you that no man can shut. But it's so simple, Gloria. I hope people listening to this take a moment and just pause. What's the thing I do best with the least amount of effort? What is the thing I do best? For me, it's talking. I can talk any way, anytime, for however long.
You really can.
I gotta talk about something that you wouldn't mind hearing.
Yes.
That's what my gift makes room.
Yes.
And so everybody, once you discover your gift, then everything, God, the universe, opens up to help you get to places to use it. It's so simple. It's people right now, Gloria, are doing hair, and they do hair just because they like doing hair. It's folks that run in daycares that I just like the little babies. That's a gift. Everybody don't like little babies.
Yeah, they really don't.
They really don't.
Yes.
But it's a gift. It's a gift about teaching. You just like helping folks. It's a gift of compassion. It's a gift of caring for poverty-stricken folks. That's a gift. What is your gift? People love working on cars. That's a gift. Whatever their gift is, it will make room for it. But it is the thing you do best with the least amount of effort. Now, here it is, Gloria. Once you find your gift, you have to jump into it. You're going to have to jump. It's going to happen. You have to jump sometime, or you'll forever be mediocre. Unless you jump into your gift, you'll forever be mediocre. And that's not bad. But if you want to soar on wings like eagles, you're going to have to jump. You're going to have to. And you're a great testimony of it. You discovered your gift, your voice, and now you can't be quiet.
I did. I never even told anybody before. Even when we were working together, nobody knew that I used to be a person that didn't speak. Once
incredible.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I didn't speak. Not in a school. I could not open my mouth. So the fact that I'm able to now do these interviews and think of questions and talk to people and do presentations at conferences, it's amazing.
That is amazing.
It's amazing.
And when you think about that, think about this. Being a Christian, man, it is what it is, but something was trying to muzzle your gift.
Yes, it was.
To make you forever. What would we miss out on if you didn't start speaking? Lord have mercy. If you never spoke, what would the world be missing? Steve Harvey, the person that made that quote, he couldn't speak outside of his house. He had a terrible stuttering problem. It was trying to shut his gift off to the world. Now we know him as one of the kings of comedy and on TV every night of the week.
Wow.
but his gift was his voice. Your gift is your voice. If that thing would have stopped you from using your gift, don't rob us of your gift if you're listening to us. The world needs your gift. It's waiting for you. The world is waiting for everybody looking and listening for you to step in to your gift.
Gerald Stewart, what a way to end it. It feels like I've been to church and I love it.
All
I
right.
love it. I've loved you from the day we met. I'm like, who is this guy? And I mean, like, we weren't like working directly together. But I was in your PD, you were in my PD, we were in this school or we were in that school. And sometimes that's the other thing. I think what you did and what other people like Jay Brown and some of CA and Angel, some of the people that we worked with, like, always treated people respectfully. And so, like, you gotta know, like, I don't know, who would know that I would reconnect with you?
Who would know? Who would know?
I've been gone from AUSL for a really long time, but the fact that we are reconnected is also something that is for a reason. Nothing happens not for a reason. And I am so glad and so blessed that you were able to join me on an episode of my podcast. I can't wait till the editing's done and you're able to share it, because
absolutely. This has been a pleasure. I believe we meet folks for a reason and a season. And we met in a season, but here's the reason right here.
That's amazing.
Here's the reason. And, you know, all those people you mentioned, Angel, Jay Brown, the list, Ty Sims, the list can go on and on. But one common denominator, CJ, they cared how people treated kids.
Yes.
That mattered.
Yes.
That really mattered to everybody that you mentioned. They wanted excellence for kids.
Yes.
Black and brown kids.
Yes.
In particular.
Yes.
And so that's huge. And that was always the thing that connected us.
Yes.
So this has been amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.